treading through Ephesians again. And I just want to pause a bit, actually, because yesterday we thought about the way in which God's power works and helps the weak. I thought, well, it'd be good just to reflect a bit further on that and think about just how. So here's a book I can't recommend highly enough. It's called The Scars That Have Shaped Me, and it's by a woman called Vaneetha Rendall Risner. Get through 10 of those, I think. All Desiring God is where it originally came from. Very powerful study on how God meets us in suffering. You can't really say you've suffered until you've read what she has to say. She has a very good chapter in it called Sustaining Grace towards the end of the book. And reflecting what somebody else challenged her with, she says this: you never hear anyone in the Bible complaining about the parting of the Red Sea. Everyone loves the grace that delivers us. But the Israelites, like us, were dissatisfied with daily manna. We all complain about the grace that merely sustains us. Ouch. Yeah. Don't we do that? You know, we want to see the mighty acts of power, especially the ones that get us out of the trouble we feel that we are in. You hear somebody else testifying to the way God has helped them, and you think, well, but why hasn't it happened to me? When God doesn't do that sort of thing, we complain. We begin to say, why aren't you answering my prayers? Why are you doing nothing? I want my prayers answered too. But in doing that and saying that, we're failing to see what God is doing. And the illustration she gives is of God providing daily manna. The Israelites failed to see it. They were cynical about it. They said, just get this manna. It was keeping them alive, but they were still cynical about it. And so we become embittered because we think God's doing nothing in our case. He has the power to help us, but he isn't in fact doing it. But her observation is that in fact God's power is sustaining us. It's holding us. It's guarding us. I mean, think of your own experience. Have you maintained faith through deeply challenging times in which you struggled and there was pain and suffering? Maybe it was disappointment with yourself or with other people or with the church. And yet today you are still believing, praying, walking with God, following him. Well, that's God's power in your life. How long have you been doing that? Well, for me, this year is 40 years since I began to follow the Lord Jesus, since he stepped in and turned my life upside down. It's only his power that's kept me going. And if we're cynical about that sort of thing, it's because we're more like the Israelites than we realize. We want the flash bang power rather than the steady, persevering power. The Archbishop of Canterbury has an interesting illustration about faith being a bit like the Duracell bunny, or I guess the battery within the Duracell bunny, in that he keeps going because he has a source of power within that the others don't have. Well, that's what we're talking about here. And don't be disappointed that this is the way God works, because this is the way God works. Rendall Risner herself says, were my prayers for deliverance answered with the gift of sustenance, sustaining grace? That's what he gives us. Gives power for the weak so they can run and not grow weary and walk and not be faint. Well, may you know that power today, sustaining you. Discover it renewed tomorrow. Well, tomorrow I won't be broadcasting, but we have our Salway Live at 11 o'clock on Sunday, and then we'll come back to these thoughts on Ephesians on Monday. So I hope to see you then.